So what's the secret of talent? How do we unlock it? That's the focus of this book written by Daniel Coyle. The Talent Code teaches us more than just vague principles about becoming successful. Rather, it teaches us the science of skill acquisition. In this book summary, you'll learn about the tools you can use to maximize the potential in yourself and others, how to achieve success by practicing with passion and persistence, and the neuroscience behind building skills. A tweetable summary: when practice and persistence is what you focus on, success and mastery is what you get. Crucial quote: the idea that all skills grow by the same cellular mechanism seems strange and surprising because the skills are so dazzlingly varied. But then again, all of this planet's variety is built from shared adaptive mechanisms. Evolution could have it no other way. Redwoods differ from roses, but both grow through photosynthesis. Elephants differ from amoebas, but both use the same cellular mechanism to convert food into energy. Tennis players, singers, and painters don't seem to have much in common, but they all get better by gradually improving timing and speed and accuracy, by honing neural circuitry, by obeying the rules of the talent code. In short, by growing more myelin. Big idea number 1. Myelin makes the master. The talent code is built on revolutionary scientific discoveries involving a neural insulator called myelin, which some neurologists now consider to be the holy grail of skill acquisition. Here's why. Every human skill, whether it's playing baseball or playing Bach, is created by chains of nerve fibers carrying a tiny electrical impulse, basically a signal traveling through a circuit. Myelin's vital role is to wrap those nerve fibers the same way that rubber insulation wraps a copper wire, making the signal stronger and faster by preventing the electrical impulses from leaking out. When we fire our circuits in the right way, when we practice swinging that bat or playing that note, our myelin responds by wrapping layers of insulation around that neural circuit. Each new layer adding a bit more skill and a bit more speed. The thicker the myelin gets, the better it insulates, and the faster and more accurate our movements and thoughts become. Myelin. This funny-sounding neural insulator is responsible for a lot of excellence. Excellence in sports, excellence in business, in art, in everything. And if you want to achieve excellence too, then you've got to be growing myelin on a regular basis. Coyle tells us that myelin is important for several reasons, but mainly because it's universal. That means that everyone can grow it, most swiftly during childhood, but also throughout life. It's indiscriminate. Its growth enables all manner of skills, mental and physical. It's imperceptible. We can't see it or feel it, and we can sense its increase only by its magical seeming effects. And most of all, however, myelin is important because it provides us with a vivid new model for understanding skill. Skill is a cellular insulation that wraps neural circuits and that grows in response to certain signals. So, how do we build more myelin? Big idea number 2. Regularly engage in deep practice. Deep practice is built on a paradox. Struggling in certain targeted ways, operating at the edges of your capability where you make mistakes. That's what makes you smarter. Or, to put it a slightly different way, experiences where you're forced to slow down, make errors, and correct them. As you would if you were walking up an ice-covered hill, slipping and stumbling as you go, end up making you swift and graceful without your realizing it. You've heard the old saying, right? Practice makes perfect. Well, hate to break it to you, but it's actually overdue for an amendment. Truth is, Coyle tells us that it's practice that makes myelin, and myelin makes perfect. But when we say practice, We're not necessarily talking about just mundane, boring, effortless practice. What we're talking about is the challenging, push yourself outside your comfort zone kind of practice. Not so challenging, though, that you feel like it's something you absolutely cannot accomplish, but just challenging enough to push you a tad bit outside your comfort zone. Just challenging enough that you've got to stretch yourself as you're getting better at or acquiring new skills. The trick, as Coyle says, is to choose a goal just beyond your present abilities, to target the struggle. Thrashing blindly doesn't necessarily help, but reaching does. Big idea number 3. Struggle is not an option. It's a biological requirement. Question: why is targeted, mistake-focused practice so effective? Answer: because the best way to build a good circuit is to fire it, to attend to mistakes, then fire it again, over and over. Struggle is not an option. It's a biological requirement. Question: why are passion and persistence key ingredients of talent? Answer: because wrapping myelin around a big circuit requires immense energy and time, and if you don't love it, you'll never work hard enough to be great. Question: what's the best way to get to Carnegie Hall? Answer: go straight down Myelin Street. Here's an actionable insight from this big idea to help you put it into action. So, you want to be a massive success? Here's what you got to remember. Make mistakes and learn from them. Remember that passion is important. You won't work hard enough without it. Big idea number 4. Work your myelin muscles. On one level, the study of myelin sounds like an exotic new neuroscience. But on another level, myelin is similar to another evolution-built mechanism that you use every day, your muscles. If you use your muscles a certain way by trying hard to lift things you can barely lift, those muscles will respond by getting stronger. If you fire your skill circuits the right way by trying hard to do things you can barely do in deep practice, then your skill circuits will respond by getting faster and more fluent. This muscle metaphor is a great way to think about skill. If you want to build bigger muscles, you need to lift more weights when you're in the gym. This heavier load you place on your muscles is actually tearing up your muscle fibers, but only while you're in the gym doing the lifting. After you're finished working out, though, your body goes to work and begins rebuilding the muscles you tore up while working out. But it doesn't just build them back up to where they used to be. It builds them back up to become stronger. Why? Because you placed a demand on them with your heavier than usual weightlifting routine. All skills in all areas of life work the same way. The more you practice, the more myelin you build. And the more myelin you build, the more skills you build. Big idea number 5. Hard work is what matters most. Consider Michelangelo. From ages 6 to 10, he lived with a stonecutter and his family, learning how to handle a hammer and chisel before he could read and write. After a brief, unhappy attempt at schooling, he apprenticed to the great Ghirlandaio. He worked on blockbuster commissions, sketching, copying, and preparing frescoes in one of Florence's largest churches. He was then taught by master sculptor Bertoldo and tutored by other luminaries at the home of Lorenzo de' Medici, where Michelangelo lived until he was 17. He was a promising but little-known artist until he produced the Pietà at age 24. People called the Pietà pure genius, but its creator begged to differ. If people knew how hard I had to work to gain my mastery, Michelangelo later said, it would not seem so wonderful at all. Now, the point of the story here is this. Extraordinary success within any field is made, not born. And that means it requires hard work. Lots and lots and lots of hard work. But people often seem to believe that incredibly successful people were blessed with some inborn gift. Sure, gifts and talents play a small role, but researchers like Coyle are beginning to show us that this role is getting smaller and smaller. The more we learn about achieving excellence, the more we learn that it's skills, not talent, that contribute to great success. And skills are things that are developed, not inborn. Big idea number 6. Develop your skills by taking baby steps. Of all the images that communicate the sensation of deep practice, my favorite, says the author, is that of the staggering babies. Long story short, a few years ago, a group of American and Norwegian researchers did a study to see what made babies improve at walking. They discovered that the key factor wasn't height or weight or age or brain development or any other innate trait, but rather, surprise, the amount of time they spent firing their circuits, trying to walk. However well this finding might support our thesis, its real use is to paint a vivid picture of what deep practice actually feels like. It's the feeling, in short, of being a staggered baby, of intently, clumsily lurching toward a goal and toppling over. It's a wobbly, discomfiting sensation that any sensible person would instinctively seek to avoid. Yet, the longer the babies remained in that state, the more willing they were to endure it and to permit themselves to fail. The more myelin they built, and the more skill they earned. The staggering babies embody the deepest truth about deep practice. To get good, it's helpful to be willing or even enthusiastic about being bad. Baby steps are the royal road to skill. When most people see babies fall down when trying to learn how to walk, they encourage them to continue, right? They'll say, "You can do it, try again." When most people see themselves fall down when trying to learn a new skill, they discourage themselves from continuing. They'll say, "I suck at this," or they'll say, "I'm such a failure," or they'll say, "I better stop trying now and cut my losses while I'm ahead." Here's the thing. You can succeed, you can learn new skills, and you can become extraordinary. It just takes baby steps. Lots and lots and lots of baby steps. As the author puts it, there is, biologically speaking, no substitute for attentive repetition. Nothing you can do, talking, thinking, reading, imagining, is more effective in building skill than executing the action, firing the impulse down the nerve fiber, fixing errors, honing the circuit. Big idea number 8. Turn on the ignition. A breakthrough success is followed by a massive bloom of talent. In May 1954, a skinny Oxford medical student named Roger Bannister became the first person to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. The broad outlines of his achievement are well known. How physiologists and athletes alike regarded the 4-minute mile as an unbreakable physiological barrier. How Bannister systematically attacked the record. How he broke the mark by a fraction of a second, earning headlines around the world and lasting fame for what Sports Illustrated later called the single greatest athletic accomplishment of the 20th century. Less well known is what happened in the weeks after Bannister's feat. Another runner, an Australian named John Landy, also broke the 4-minute barrier. The next season, a few more runners did too. Then, they started breaking it in droves. Within 3 years, no fewer than 17 runners had matched the greatest sporting accomplishment of the 20th century. Nothing profound had changed. The track surfaces were the same, the training was the same, the genes were the same. To chalk it up to self-belief or positive thinking is to miss the point. The change didn't come from inside the athletes. They were responding to something outside them. The 17 runners had received a clear signal. You can do this too. And the 4-minute mark, once an insurmountable wall, was instantly recast as a stepping stone. This is how ignition works. Where deep practice is a cool, conscious act, ignition is hot, mysterious burst and awakening. Where deep practice is an incremental wrapping, ignition works through lightning flashes of image and emotion. Evolution built neural programs that tap into the mind's vast reserves of energy and attention. Where deep practice is all about staggering baby steps, ignition is about the right set of signals and subconscious forces that create our identity. The moments that lead us to say, that is who I want to be. Some actionable insights for you to put this big idea into action. So, who do you want to be? Take some time to think on, or better yet, take some time to journal on that question. And as you answer the aforementioned question, think about some of your most inspiring role models. Doesn't matter who, just think about some of the people that inspire you most. What are the values and qualities you admire most about these people? Write that down. Also write down, what do you believe to be their biggest accomplishments? What have they done in life that inspires you most? Do you want to do something similar? Something even bigger, maybe? Take some time to answer those questions. Big idea number 9. Develop a vision. What ignited the progress wasn't any innate skill or gene. It was a small, ephemeral, yet powerful idea. A vision of their ideal future selves. A vision that oriented, energized, and accelerated progress, and that originated in the outside world. An inspiring vision can set you on fire. Check out this example from the book about how a student got super inspired about learning to play an instrument. When he played that, at that moment, something happened, McPherson said. Clarissa was awestruck by the jazz version, entranced. She saw the teacher play it, and he must have played with some style because she got an image of herself as a performer. The teacher didn't realize it then, but everything snapped together. And all of a sudden, while hardly knowing it, she's on fire. She's desperate to learn. Note the process McPherson is describing here. The teacher's playing caused Clarissa to experience an intense emotional response. That response, call it fascination, rapture, or love, instantly connected Clarissa to a high-octane fuel tank of motivation, which powered her deep practice. So, you don't need to know who McPherson or Clarissa is to put this idea into action. That was a story from the book. Let's talk about how you can use it. Develop an inspiring vision of the future for yourself. Reflect on the exercise from the previous big idea about role models, and then create a clear, inspiring image of yourself achieving a goal or set of goals, or acquiring the skills to help you become more successful. Big idea number 10. Don't be shy, take action. The Shyness Clinic is located in a nondescript office park on a busy road in Palo Alto, California. It has slate gray walls and dull burgundy furniture. The only sign of life is an underwater photograph of a clownfish peeping warily from the safety of an anemone's tentacles. The clinic is built around the idea that social skills are just like any other skill. Founders Philip Zimbardo and Lynn Henderson call their concept social fitness training, though we might call it myelination through deep practice. We believe that people are shy not because they lack social skills, but because they haven't practiced them sufficiently, said therapist Nicole Shiloff. Talking on the phone or asking someone on a date is a learnable skill, exactly like a tennis forehand. The key is that people have to linger in that uncomfortable area, learn to tolerate the anxiety. If you practice, you can get to the level you want. The godfather of this kind of therapy is Dr. Albert Ellis, Ellis, who was born in 1913 and raised in the Bronx, was a painfully shy teenager, unable to bring himself to speak to women. But one afternoon, he decided to make a change. He sat on a bench near the New York Botanical Garden and chatted with every woman who sat down next to him. In 1 month, he spoke with 130 women. 30 walked away immediately, he said. I talked with the other 100 for the first time in my life, no matter how anxious I was. Nobody vomited, nobody ran away, nobody called the cops. Ellis, who went on to write dozens of books, built a straight-talk, action-oriented approach that challenged the Freudian model of examining childhood experience. Neuroses is just a high-class word for whining, he said. The trouble with most therapy is that it helps you to feel better, but you don't get better. You have to back it up with action, action, action. Action, baby. Action. At the end of the day, that's what matters most. By the way, Dr. Ellis was the second most influential psychologist of the 20th century, named by American Psychological Association. Carl Rogers was the first one, and Freud was number 3. Now, his action-oriented approach to developing skills and overcoming anxiety eventually went on to become part of what's now known as cognitive behavioral therapy, which has been shown to be equal to or better than prescription drugs for alleviating depression, anxiety, and obsessive-compulsive disorders. Many of his ideas were inspired by Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, who said, "It is not events, but our opinions about them, which cause us suffering." So, are you feeling shy about trying something new or risking failure while attempting to build a new skill? Sorry to break it to you, but there's no way around it. Becoming great at anything requires us to risk falling down, because it's the getting back up that contributes to our eventual greatness. Be willing to be uncomfortable. The key to successfully mastering a skill is our willingness to linger in that uncomfortable area and learn to tolerate the anxiety.